Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro Moros announced the appointment of a new ambassador to Brazil as both nations restart relations. In the United States, over 3,000 flights have been canceled as a massive winter storm has been battering northern states. And we have more information. In France, 3 people were killed and 40 injured after a 69-year-old gunman opened fire in central Paris. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. On Thursday, Venezuelan opposition figures who used to support former Venezuelan congressperson and self-proclaimed President Juan Guaidó voted against his unconstitutional government. With 72 votes in favor, 23 against, and 9 abstentions, the first consultation shows a disapproval of Guaidó, using the figure of interim government, which is not contemplated in the country's legal framework. Guaidó had the support of 4 opposition parties, and 3 of them voted against them or him on Thursday. Acción Democrática, the Democratic Action, Primero Justicia, Justice First, and Un Nuevo Tiempo, a new time, could definitely dismiss him this December 29th when the second consultation will take place. Meanwhile, within the framework of the strategy of peace and dialogue outlined by the Bolivarian executive, the country walks with a firm step towards the stabilization that the Latin American right wing and Washington have tried to undermine. Also, Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro Moros announced on Thursday that Manuel Vicente Badel, who was serving as a consul in Sao Paulo, will be the country's new ambassador to Brazil. After his appointment is approved by the Venezuelan Congress, Badel will be able to assume the diplomatic representation of his country starting January the 1st, when Brazil's president-elect Luis Inácio Lula da Silva begins his 4-year term in office. With the appointment of the Venezuelan ambassador, both nations fully re-established their diplomatic relations, which were suspended and strained by the far-right President Jair Bolsonaro in 2019. From Brazil, President-elect Lula da Silva announced his administration will re-establish diplomatic relations with Venezuela. Also in Brazil, President-elect Lula da Silva's transition team highlighted that Jair Bolsonaro's government promoted and dismantling of essential public services and points out the need to reverse these decisions. The final report for the transition team pointed out that the need for a general revocation of the norms instituted in several areas. According to the document released on Thursday, the dismantling responded to a logic of fewer rights for the majority and more privileges for the minority. According to the same report, Bolsonaro leaves the country with 33.1 million Brazilians suffering from hunger and 125.2 million people living with some degree of food insecurity. And Nicaragua remembers the victims of the 1972 earthquake, which on a day like today, 5 decades ago, devastated the city of Managua, causing more than 10,000 fatalities. The Sandinist government, headed by the President Daniel Ortega and the Vice President Rosario Murillo, will hold a state act in memory of those who died in the fateful natural event. As part of the activities in tribute to those who died in the biggest earthquake in Nicaragua's history, the inauguration of a memorial park is also planned. The Sandinista leader referred to the need to continue creating a better city and a better future, with work, security, and peace for all Nicaraguan families. Operations continue in Colombia to put out the fire that destroyed 2 oil storage tanks in the city of Barranquilla and that claimed the life of 1 person. The Emergency Operative Committee informed that around midnight on Thursday, the fire in one of the tanks that remained active was controlled and extinguished. The committee indicated that after analyzing the situation with local and national authorities, another operation will be carried out to try to put out the blaze, since the damaging effect of an explosion in a third tank has been minimized. The committee indicated that firefighters continue efforts to keep the fire from spreading. Now we move on to other topics. On Thursday, the president of Chile decreed a state of catastrophe due to a massive fire in the Viña del Mar, which so far has left 2 dead and 500 homes burned. The national government decreed a state of constitutional exception due to the fires in Viña del Mar. The regional delegation confirmed a second fatality. The fire, which has already scorched more than 100 hectares, is still out of control, and there are justified fears that it could reach the gardens and the historic palace of the Quinta Vergara. In a briefing to the media, the Minister of the Interior, Carolina Toja, informed that at least 500 houses have been destroyed and shelters and resources are being set up for the affected citizens. And a massive winter storm has been battering the U.S. for the past 2 days with plunging temperatures, prompting 13 states to implement emergency plans and activating National Guard units. The storm is expected to intensify, with its pressure matching that of a Category 2 hurricane as it moves into the Great Lakes this Friday. Over 3,000 flights have been canceled already, and more than 200 million people across the country are under alert for life-threatening below-zero wind chills. Montana, South Dakota, and Wyoming have already seen below -50 degrees Fahrenheit wind chills in the past 2 days. The storm is also lashing southern states, which are unaccustomed to such extreme winter conditions. Thousands of homes and businesses were left without power early Friday across Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Missouri. Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and also more. Other studies coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Peru on Thursday, a delegation from the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights met with the ousted president Pedro Castillo. Relatives of the former president reportedly held a meeting in a hotel in the Peruvian capital with members of the regional body. On Wednesday night, the former president urgently requested to be visited by the commission at the prison in Lima where he is being held. The delegates, led by the executive secretary Tania Renom, finally met with Castillo on Thursday, as was confirmed by his lawyer Wilfredo Robles, who was not alerted by the prison authorities. And Wilfredo Robles, the defense attorney for the Peruvian former president, denounced the conditions of his client's imprisonment.
He has no communication, there is no access to telephones, there is no access to television news, to newspapers, to raise the irregular way, the unlawful way in which he has been removed from the presidency, then arrested when the Congress had not yet approved the vacancy. He is arrested.
In Argentina, social movements gathered in Plaza de Mayo and on Friday a three-day demonstration to call for a presidential pardon for Milagro Sala. The indigenous activist was sentenced to 13 years in prison by the Jujuy court, ruling that was ratified by the Supreme Court. From Buenos Aires, our correspondent Carolina Silvestre with the details.
The demand of various groups in the South American country is due to the unjust deprivation of liberty of the maximum leader of the Tupac Amaru force.
There is a problem that goes through all of this, which is institutional insecurity, which is a permanent violation of human rights, and the IACHR itself has declared a violation of human rights in the case of Jujuy. So the president has all the power to intervene, and if he does not do it, it's because he does not have the strength to do it, or because he has a different agenda.
The request for a presidential pardon has the support of human rights organizations, national lawmakers, different political forces, and social movements.
There is jurisprudence, such as the Vecchi case of 2002, signed by Banossi. Today, he is legal advisor to the president. In the case of jurisprudence of the autonomous city of Buenos Aires, dealt with as if it were a province, a pardon is granted in the Vecchi case.
For Nelia Rojas, leader of Tupac Amaru in the province of Mendoza, who also faced harassment and prison, there is an urgent need to put an end to lawfare.
One day after the corrupt court that exists here in Argentina, after the conviction of our colleagues, the Jujuy authorities approved the expropriation of the things our partners built and that each one of us knows about their struggle. And we have seen how they have done those works with so much sacrifice and so much love.
For the protesters, the solution would only be found through politics.
We're waiting to see what stance the president takes. Whether he will take the position of this side, the one of democracy, of the electoral contract that brought him to the government, of facing up to persecution and lawfare, or whether he will choose the position of those who persecuted us in 2016 and those who are keeping Milagro under arrest, because neutrality does not exist. By doing nothing, the only thing he does is empowering the powerful so that they can continue robbing Argentina, causing hunger to our population, and also strengthens the position of the lawfare structure that is still intact. And if he does nothing, he will continue to persecute us.
In addition to the above, Milagro Sala is in a serious state of health due to the phlebitis, which is why her doctors are calling for her immediate transfer to a highly complex clinic in Jujuy.
Carolina Silvestre, TeleSUR, Buenos Aires.
Now we move on to other topics. In France, 3 people were dead and 4 injured after a 69-year-old gunman opened fire in central Paris. The French capital's public prosecutor's department has opened a murder investigation and is working to confirm the suspect's identity. French security personnel also reported that out of the 4 people who were injured, 1 is in critical conditions after the shooting at a Kurdish community center. French authorities said the motive of the attack are still unclear. On Friday, the United Kingdom Border Force workers went on strike to demand better wages. This measure deepens the crisis in what is already being called the winter of discontent due to the wave of strikes in numerous sectors which are demanding wage increases to match the rising cost of living. Border personnel, members of the Public and Commercial Services Union, will continue this strike until December 31st, with the exception of December 27th, after rejecting an offer of a 2% wage increase, which fell far below their ask for a 10% raise. The strike will mainly affect passengers arriving at the country's main airports, such as Heathrow or Gatwick, and at the port of New Haven in southeast England. The British Conservative government has already warned long queues are to be expected at border patrols. On Thursday, the Deputy Secretary General of the UN, Amina Mohamed, has called the countries with the capacity of doing so to send armed forces to Haiti. Once again, the UN disregards the clamor of the Haitian people who have permanently rejected the sending of the troops to the country. Saying that insecurity has reached unprecedented levels, the Deputy Secretary endorsed the request made in October by the Haitian Premier Ariel Henry. At the time, thousands of citizens inside and outside the country have demonstrated in rejection of the request, recalling the serious consequences left in the country by foreign interventions. On Friday, the Russian government plans to ban the shipment of oil and oil products to countries that join the Western policy of a price cap. Moscow could cut the production to cope with Western attempts to manipulate the market. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said that Moscow plans to ban all the shipments of oil and oil products to countries that demand in the contracts to comply with the price cap, as recently agreed by the Western nations. In response to the price cap, the government intends to cut production by 5 to 7% by early 2023, and Novak warned that by early next year they may have a cut of 500,000 to 70,100 barrels per day, according to an interview by the Rosia 24 channel. In this regard, Novak referred to a decree that the President Vladimir Putin could sign as early as next Monday on Tuesday. He also said that 2022 will end with a 2% increase in Russia's production to 525 million tons and a 5% increase in derivatives. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. An Ivorian prosecutor demanded on Wednesday a life sentence for 4 suspects allegedly involved in the 2016 machine gun assault on a beach resort that killed 19 people. The lawyers of the 4 defendants who stood before the Abidjan court has demanded acquittal for the clients. They claim that the prosecution lacked proof of their complicity with the perpetrators of the attack. All 18 were charged for acts of terrorism, murder, attempted murder, criminal concealment, illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, and complicity in these deeds. During the trial, many witnesses to the attack, including the owner of one of the targeted hotels and a member of the special forces who shot the attackers, took the stand to recount the day of March 13, 2016, and the verdict is expected on December 28th. A new report by the European Investment Bank reveals Africa could make $1.1 trillion from the sale and use of green hydrogen. According to this report, harnessing Africa's solar energy to produce 50 million tons of green hydrogen a year by 2035 can help secure the global energy supply, create jobs, decarbonize heavy industry, and transform access to clean water and sustainable energy. The study highlights the benefits of harnessing solar power to produce green hydrogen in 4 African hubs: Mauritania, Morocco, Southern Africa, and Egypt. According to the EAB, this is the first detailed research on the feasible development of green hydrogen across the continent. And Rwanda ranks first in its income group before Madagascar and Ethiopia and occupies the 9th spot in the group. The 2022 Global Innovation Index tracks innovation trends worldwide. It evaluates the innovative performance of around 132 economies, while highlighting innovation strengths and weaknesses. Mauritius, South Africa, and Morocco are the best-ranked African nations, 45th, 61st, and 67th respectively, while Mauritania, Burundi, and Guinea are the least innovative African economies. Rwanda is the most innovative economy among low-income countries. Uganda received a new shipment of the Ebola vaccine from the World Health Organization. Uganda's health authorities announced changes in the strategy used to deal with the Ebola outbreak in the country. The local representative of the United Nations said that Uganda is able to organize a test of the Sudan strain of the Ebola vaccine. The last confirmed patient with the disease was discharged from the hospital on November 30th. Last week, health restrictions were lifted in the two central districts where the measure was still in force. And Comoros will assume the presidency of the African Union, the AU, in the 2023, the first time the organization appoints an island nation to such a position. The event comes after Kenya withdrew its presidency candidacy, leaving the way open for Comoros' proposal. Comorian president expressed his gratitude to Kenya and said the decision showed Nairobi's commitment to promoting unity and stability in the East African nation. AU president heads the Assembly's biannual summits and represents the continent in various international forums. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.